presented by The Impact of Nuclear Waste by me, Brady Miller, Christian Schaffner, Dominic Mitchell, and Reed Hassett. Now first, what is nuclear waste? Well, nuclear waste is a highly radioactive and toxic substance and a byproduct of nuclear fuel. And it is important because we can't get nuclear energy without creating, of course, nuclear waste. And that waste has piled up over the years, to a point where phys.org, a scientific news site, states currently there's a global stockpile of around 250,000 tons of highly radioactive spent fuel. And Chemical and Engineering News states that the U.S. has produced 90,000 of the 250,000 tons of nuclear waste. This waste can be both harmful to humans and the environment. The Mayo Clinic lists radiation and nuclear waste as one of the major causes of cancer, which on average kills about 20% of all patients. And Rose Keevy, a doctor, states long-term exposure to low-level radiation has been shown to damage DNA. As the quote says, even low-level waste can degrade DNA, which shows nuclear waste is something to keep away from life. Sadly, the only currently possible way to make nuclear waste harmless is by letting it decay for millions of years. You may ask, why can't we just stop using nuclear energy and use other renewables? The simple answer is that nuclear power is here to stay for many decades to come. The Nuclear Energy Institute states that the top 10 countries that use nuclear power get over 30% of all their power from nuclear, with the top 2 getting over 70% of their power from nuclear energy. This is where we have our problem.
So, this nuclear waste is very hazardous. In fact, in Kishtim, a Soviet nuclear plant, there was a disaster, the 3rd largest nuclear disaster in all of history, according to the International Atomic Energy Agency. And that is just nuclear waste only. No reactors exploded, and yet it is the 3rd largest disaster behind Chernobyl and Fukushima, respectively. So our problem is we don't have a permanent disposal solution for this nuclear waste.
So nuclear waste is recyclable. Once reactor fuel, uranium or thorium, is used in a reactor, it can be treated and put into another reactor as fuel. In fact, typical reactors only extract a few percent of energy in their fuel. You could power the entire US electricity grid off of the energy in nuclear waste for almost 100 years. William Shughart, a professor with a PhD in economics from Texas A&M, says, the nuclear fuel recycling process is straightforward. It involves converting spent plutonium and uranium into a mixed oxide that can be reused to produce more electricity. A great solution as it seems, although, according to the Pacific Northwest Laboratory, recycling spent nuclear fuel means separating the energy-generating plutonium from everything else in the mix, while not separating it in pure form, which is viewed as a proliferation risk. However, William Shughart also states, as for concerns about proliferation, the reality is that no nuclear materials have ever been obtained from the spent fuel of a nuclear power plant, owing both to the substantial cost and technical difficulty of doing so, and because of effective oversight by national governments and the International Atomic Energy Agency. Also, the Office of Nuclear Energy mentions that over the last 55 years, more than 2,500 cask shipments of used fuel have been transported across the U.S. without any radiological releases into the environment or harm to the public.
Our second solution is the Oncolo nuclear storage facility, located in Irajoka, Finland, conveniently located by Olkiluoto nuclear power plant, one of Finland's 2 nuclear reactors. This storage facility has done what no one has done before. They have made a permanent storage facility for spent nuclear waste. Its walls are encased in concrete and are 430 meters underground, 420 meters under sea level. The nuclear fuel will be stored in 3,250 canisters, all bunched to fit into 30 to 40 copper tubes, the size of giraffes. The facility, which will start being filled in the next couple of years, has enough room for around 100 years of nuclear fuel, And once full, it will be backfilled with bentonite, a water-absorbing clay, and left for the next 100,000 years. For context, 100,000 years ago, the first Homo sapiens started to appear. And the oldest civilization, the Mesopotamians, only 5,000 years old. So, the fuel will be down there for a while. The limitations of this plan are few and far between, as the facility is nearly finished with all laws and regulations cleared. Despite this, some limitations besides Oncolo include the fact that this particular facility can only hold 6,500 tons of nuclear waste, with the world having 265,000 tons. Despite this, the success with the Oncolo storage facility and piles of spent nuclear fuel will prod nations around the world to adapt and implement some of the similar elements of the Oncolo site.
We found that the Oncolo nuclear storage facility is the best solution to this. First, the Oncolo is much safer, as World Nuclear News states that used nuclear fuel will be placed in bedrock at the depth of 450 meters, and those 450 meters in the ground are far enough from the environment and humans that they won't affect them. And the reuse of nuclear waste can be extremely unsafe due to the creation of new waste called transuranic waste, an intermediate level of nuclear waste that contains 4% of the radioactivity from nuclear reactors. And this transuranic waste needs special storage, which the Oncolo also provides. And the Oncolo can also, as Reed said, hold the next 100 years of nuclear waste, which is about 105,000 cubic meters of waste. In those 100 years, the nearby power plant, Oncolo power plant, will produce 1.4 million gigawatts of power. And according to CNET, a tech news website, each gigawatt can power 750,000 houses. And if you multiply those two, in the 100-year span where the waste will be stored, over 100 quadrillion homes will be powered. And another thing about reusing waste is that it can malfunction as the technology is not fully developed, and they will need to be fixed quite a few times. And the Nuclear Information and Resource Service states every reprocessing site is an environmental catastrophe with massive releases of radioactivity to air, land, and water, high radiation exposures. All of these were caused by reprocessing sites either due to them malfunctioning or due to their technology not being the best. And the world is unsure when these recycling systems will become error-free. Meanwhile, the World Nuclear News says this about Oncolo. The joint functional test, which will take place in 2023, will test final disposal using the technology designed for it. And Juha Rihimaki, the construction manager, states actual final disposal activities will begin in one of the tunnels around 2025. If these tests of Oncolo go correctly, we could very well see it become operational soon. And that is why the Oncolo nuclear storage facility is the best solution. Thank you and have a great day.